it was kind of like a,
Oh. That's funny.
Yeah, good enough. I think it should be a little brighter.
I thought the power went out.
Right?
Yeah, no, me too.
This just reminded me of like the Rogan episode. He was like, I forget who he's talking to, and like the power kept cutting.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, and they're like, I think like somebody's watching us do this episode, and they don't want it to go out.
That's funny.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Nerds.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Nüvida. Let's talk. Today, our guest is a game changer in not one, not two, but three industries. He was the creator of Gatsby's nightclub, arguably the best nightclub that ever existed in London, Ontario. He pioneered healthy food delivery with LiveFit and Foods, and now he's tackling plastic waste head-on with groundbreaking tech at Denovia Labs, which turns plastic into treasure in 5 minutes. Join us as we dive into the extraordinary journey of this visionary entrepreneur who's reshaping how we eat and saving the planet at the same time. Nick Spina, brother, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And let's start, I guess, with Gatsby's, yo. That was the best. That was the best place, honestly.
Yeah, it was a wild time.
Right?
So how old were you when you started that?
23.
That's crazy. So you opened up Gatsby's like by yourself, like with a team, and
No, I had a partner.
Yeah.
I had a partner. It was you know what? It's a pretty wild story, actually. So I used to manage a group, like a hospitality group, even when I was younger than that.
Yeah.
The owner of that group didn't know how old I was, and anyways, I was running a few different places, but a fairly large one in London called Tap House that held about 700 people, and we had when I took it over as a general manager. It wasn't super busy, and we made it super busy over 5 months or something like that. It was super satisfying, but then the business decided to change. One brother owned it in the family. It moved to the other brother, and he wanted to shut it down and open up another brand in there. So I'm in Rome, okay, at 6 a.m. I get a call from one of my best friends, and he goes, "Nick, I'm sorry to say, but apparently you're fired." And I was like, interesting, because I'm the only one who can fire people besides
the general
owner.
manager.
Yeah.
and then he's like, "No, apparently the owner has been calling everybody and just letting everyone go, and apparently you're on that list." And I was like, "What the hell? We're busy, like what's going on here?" I called him. He said, "Yeah, Nick, unfortunately my brother's taking over the business, and he wants everyone gone. He wants to start something else." And I hung up, and I looked at my friend at the time, and I said, "You know what? We're going to open up our own place."
And this is in Rome, right?
I was in Rome. Yeah, 6 a.m. Okay. Made me feel, that was a phone call where you just feel sick to your stomach.
Yeah, of course.
Fuck the pain at the time. And then, so I look at him and I say, "We're going to open up something as soon as we get back." And he thought, he looked at me without a second, didn't hesitate. He said, "Fuck yeah." And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking, I was like, you know what? I'm going to open a place. I wasn't going to let anything get in my way, which is kind of like my attitude towards business now. If you really want something to happen, you can make it happen even if you don't have the tools in front of you.
Yeah.
Right? It just matters how bad you want it. So I called a guy who used to manage Rouge. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, yeah, Club Rouge. Yeah,
Rouge.
We were
and,
young when it was.
And I knew it was closed for a couple of years, and I was like, well, he's sitting on, a closed venue that I could probably give him an offer and take it over. I had like 20 grand saved to my name at the time.
Yeah.
And I went to him and I said, "Hey, I want to buy this closed down nightclub from you." And he was like, "No." He was like, "You probably don't even have money."
Yeah.
And then I was like, "I can go get money." And then he said, "Okay, how much can you get?" And I said, "I don't know, like 60 grand maybe. Let me see what I can do." And then he's like, "Okay, go out and get money, and and then we'll talk." And he probably put 600 grand into the thing, okay?
Yeah.
But he wasn't able to bring people there or manage it.
Yeah.
So then I kind of thought, well, I bring a lot of tools that he doesn't have, and maybe he'll take my offer to retrieve some of his money back. And then he calls me back maybe a couple days later, and he says, "Nick, I did some research about you, and you pack Tap House, and apparently, you know, everyone on your team really likes you, and like, you know, so I want to do 50-50 with you.
That's great.
And I was like, okay, I didn't know how to do fucking construction.
Yeah.
He did, you know, so, and we had to do a lot of it, and we had 30 days to open by the time the students came back. So then what happened was, I went and I said, okay, let's do it. I brought some money. We had 30 days to renovate. I didn't sleep. News crews were coming in and interviewing me because I was 23, right?
Yeah.
Damn.
So people were like, hey, like, you know, is this kid going to make it? And opening night, I had maybe 2 speakers hooked up. Okay. The walls were still wet with paint. I'm not kidding you. There was no air conditioning or anything. Couldn't afford it.
But the show goes on, right?
Yeah.
I remember I went out in the parking lot and I puked.
Damn.
I was so nervous. I went and I puked, and then I went back inside, finished up. I got some music running. The DJs come in. It's like 8:30, 9 o'clock rolls around. All of a sudden, someone like a group of people walking and like across the parking lot, maybe like 4 people or something like that. And we're like, hey, like, why are you here? They're like, we're here for opening night. And I was like, we don't open for an hour or more, you know?
Yeah.
It's like 10:30 or something when we opened. And then within like 30 minutes, there was like 3,000 people in the parking lot.
Crazy.
It was insane.
Yeah.
And then I thought, holy shit.
Yeah.
You know, because it was a moment in my life where either it was going to, you know, go this way, I was going to be in some debt, or I was going to succeed.
Yeah.
Right. And then, that was the start of Gatsby.
That's
I
crazy.
love that story.
Man. No, and how were you able to attract 3,000 people on opening day? Like, were you guys just marketing? Like,
We learned how to do that from the prior business.
Yeah.
And then we just met so many people.
Yeah.
And we invited everyone.
Yeah.
So it felt like the whole city came. I mean,
Yeah.
there's hundreds of thousands of
What's
people.
the first thing
on
your partner said to you when he saw that turnout, that you actually did it?
He was impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was happy. But that's the thing. It's like when you get people there, then you're like, oh shit, you know, how do we keep them here, right?
Yeah.
That's
How did
the
you
big
feel that
thing.
night when you went to bed? Like, you know, knowing that it turned out the way you wanted it to.
You know what? I think like subconsciously a lot of people think like, I want to start a business, which is like the winning, like you start it and you're like, yay, you know, but you have to keep it going.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like, that's the kind of the double-edged sword. It's like you start a business and it's not like the finish line. You're just getting to the start of the race.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you know,
Yeah. So you're not really like celebrating at that point because like you gotta
like you
keep
do,
it,
you
sustain it though. You gotta,
I highly recommend for people to celebrate when they can. Not too much because you might take your foot off the gas.
Yeah.
You know, I think mentally, if you think that you've won in life, then you don't work as hard. So that's like something that is it's like entrepreneurship is like stair steps, right? Like you're constantly taking a step, and I say like, you know, have a win, but like, and then you're gonna want to take another one, and it never ends though.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You know, I have you know, friends that, you know, in the multi-millions, hundreds of millions to billions that are still playing the game.
Yeah.
You know, it is like there is no ceiling for them, that they just want to keep going.
Yeah.
Right. So it's fascinating.
I feel like that's like a personality type though, right? Like
Yeah.
you would
100%.
say,
Like
like
the
just
chase.
someone who just like
It's fulfilling. Right?
yeah, exactly. You just want to keep on like growing and keep on like proving like yourself, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That's dope.
Right. And it's stimulating.
Oh,
Like,
for sure.
extremely stimulating. They say like a lot of high performing athletes will, you know, they get an adrenaline rush, right? Whenever they kind of like go into a game, they have these crowds of, you know, 20,000 people watching them,
Yeah.
right? And then you kind of get like you learn to love it,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of like the same thing in business. You kind of get a little bit of adrenaline for sure when you like overcome some really big
Yeah.
challenge.
And did you have a role model in business like when you were young? Because 23 and then opening up Gatsby's, like you have this drive in you. Like what? Like how were your surroundings? Like
I used to
when you
read
were young?
Steve Jobs' books. I used to read Gary Vaynerchuk's books.
Yeah.
Now he's my partner.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
craziest.
You know,
ever to
that's
me.
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that was
wild.
wild. I'm not kidding you. It just, like when you want things to happen so bad, like for some reason, I'm not like really spiritual or
Yeah.
anything, but you know, I do believe in like you work towards things, maybe even subconsciously, and like I always wanted Gary to be a partner, and an opportunity came up where a friend of mine actually knew him.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, we're raising capital right now and looking for partners too. Can you intro Gary? And I got on the phone with Gary, and Gary heard everything that I said, and he was like, let's fucking go. He's like, and he looked at his lawyer, and he was like, man, he's like, make this real. And
And Gary invested in which one of your ventures again?
he's a partner in Ethy Group.
Oh, okay, cool.
And in Denovia.
And in Denovia.
Yeah.
Nice.
Denovia is owned by Ethy Group, but is also being spun out into its own company. So.
Okay.
So how'd you make the pivot from like being like a manager at a club or like an owner and then going to what you're doing now?
Great question. I think, I think, to be honest, it's kind of like gun to the back of your head scenario. Okay. And what I mean by that is, I was managing a place and the business closed and didn't want that management team there anymore. He just wanted to hire in a fresh team. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do now? So gun to the back of my head, either I'm going to open up my own place or do nothing. Yeah. Decided that I wanted to win.
Was that your identity at that moment? Was being like a club owner, or?
It was. Yeah. It wasn't necessarily like I think a lot of negative stigma comes along with like clubbing, I guess.
Yeah,
but we ran a fantastic facility that was super clean. We wanted just to have a really good crowd.
Yeah.
And we did. It was a great business. I loved the business side of it. I didn't really care too much about the partying side. I always was pretty like, I treated it like a business. Yeah. But I think when I went to Gatsby and started Gatsby, eating healthy was always a priority of mine. Yeah. And I wanted to get out of the bar industry because it wasn't super scalable. And it wasn't something like, again, talking about steps. I wanted to take another step. Yeah. And there's also a lot of negatives in that industry that brought on a lot of like, you never knew, like we got that place so filled that like you never know when someone's gonna fall down the fucking stairs.
Like the liability
was like a lot, but and people don't realize like how much that actually costs. Right? So you might have a good month, but then all of a sudden like you get the police come in and give you a hard time or something like that. And like the regulations in that industry is it's 3,000 people there at a minimum, usually every night. Yeah. So when you have that sort of liability, like think of 1%. Yeah. Right? Like a 1% issues every night. Right? So whether that is, someone falling on the stairs or even like you're partially responsible for people drinking and driving. Yeah. So someone could walk down the street, get in a car, drive away, crash, and I'm slightly responsible. Yeah. So, I just wanted to get into something else. So I thought of the idea of LiveFit when I was eating out twice a day. Okay. Yeah. And eating healthy is a priority of mine. And I kind of thought, hey, I need a better solution.
Yeah. That's so cool, man. Right? Like that transition in regards to business from like owning a club to LiveFit, like did you find that there was a lot of similar things that you can pull to like the next business?
100%.
The hospitality.
And what were some of those things? Yeah.
I definitely learned a ton of skills on the relationship side. I love making friends everywhere I go, and so that's what I really liked about hospitality. But just generally running a business, learning about how to balance sheet, financial statements, and that kind of stuff.
So were you wearing multiple hats at Gatsby's? Like you were like
everything. Yeah, I was doing everything.
Damn.
Yeah, same thing at Tapos.
Damn.
Yeah, managing people, right? Yeah. Large teams. We're talking like I think we had like 70, 60 staff. I think at one point. So it was everything, and even the science of making sure that people had a good time every single night. It's a lot more sophisticated than you might think, down to the point of like even dimming the lights in the bathroom or changing them to amber. And because when you go to a bar, you want people to feel confident, not nervous. So when people go into the bathroom, they look in the mirror and they might look tanned, and like, so little things like that. Or you want to make sure that, people go to a bar to kind of meet each other. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So you have to build it in a way where people might brush past each other quite easily and meet each other.
Yeah.
You know, so it's always 4 to 5 feet in front of the bar.
Yeah.
You know, and then you want the bar to be relatively busy so people bump into each other.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Right. And then like even with like TVs is a science in a bar, because if you're standing there with a drink and you are standing by yourself or maybe with a friend, you have nothing to look at besides people. And like if you get caught looking at someone, you might get really awkward.
Yeah.
But if you have a little TV that you can look at, you know, it just takes the edge off.
Yeah.
Right. So
It's really a science.
Yeah.
To it.
it's a science.
That's
It's
why
really
you're
science.
walking around all confident back in the day.
Why? Because the lights,
Because the lights in the bathroom.
Yeah. Well, even with like music, right?
Yeah.
Beginning of the night, you want to play music that girls like.
Yeah.
Because then the dance floor fills with girls.
Ah,
And then the guys come in and, you know,
Yeah.
and guys want to dance with girls. So it's like you want the dance floor to be filled with girls. And then when guys show up, then, you know, people can meet each other easier.
Were you learning like this like social aspect of like people? Like, are you reading?
Like how do I read them or
No,
or where did I learn it?
Yeah, where'd you learn it?
I think it's always been it's been a part of me in my blood. Like I love people generally. I just love conversations. I mean, just human connection is fantastic,
Yeah.
right? But I think also just through time, it's a part of the business, right? Like the hospitality business is, you know, people don't go to a bar to buy like a vodka soda. You know what I mean? When you might think that is almost 100% how a venue makes its money, right? But people are actually coming to meet other people.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
For the experience, the time there.
You're in the people business and you happen to be selling beverages,
Oh, okay.
right?
Yeah. It's
So-
just a byproduct of like this business itself.
Right. And you want to have as many friends as possible and create an ecosystem where people can socialize with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how we were very successful with that industry.
That's amazing. I guess let's get into Lifefitfoods. How did you start that, and like did you just sold Gatsby's and then you moved on to your next venture, or how was that transition in regards to business?
Kind of, yeah. Like I got out of the bar business and I went, you know, I was walking past, what was I getting? A haircut, and I was walking past Thai or what is it called? Bangkok
Bantan.
Pad Thai downtown.
Oh, Ben 10.
Yeah, and I was walking behind it, and then I kind of had this idea at home where I was like, I need a restaurant kitchen. I kind of know them. I'll go in and ask if I can rent it from them. And I went in there and I was like, can I rent this from you on Sundays? And they were like, well, think about it. And I was like, I'll give you $300. And they're like, okay. And then we did that. I went in there. I had a friend at Cisco, a food supplier, and I went out and I told like 4 friends about this idea that I thought could use it. I went in there and cooked the shit myself with 2 other chefs in there because I wanted to have, I think, like in a partnership, like I didn't know how to do the construction half of the bar, which was not good for me because if he went on vacation, then nothing would happen, right? So with this business, I was like, I'm going to learn everything myself. I mean, I knew generally how to cook things, but I went in there and got hands-on, and that was my thesis. I wanted to go in there and learn 100% of the business, and that's what I did. And
So creative for you to like ask Bantan to use their place on Sunday.
Yeah.
I was
I feel
nervous
like-
too. I was
yeah.
nervous, and it was against like I could went home and kick my feet up,
Yeah.
you know. But I was like, fuck it, you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna ask, and I went in there and asked, and then they were like, okay. You know, sure.
Yeah,
and I was
yeah.
like, holy shit. You know, business is starting. The one thing I'll say is that is really bizarre for some reason that's happened in my lifetime or career is that, you know, while I was, you know, a manager at Tapos, I was like, I'm going to open up my own place one day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then an opportunity happened that made me do it.
Yeah.
You know, but then the same thing with the bar. I didn't want to be in the bar business anymore. And then I was just walking by chance, not unplanned. You know, I was like, I looked at it and I was like, well, you know, that time isn't just going to come to me. I have to go to it. I'm here. May as well go in, you know? So I did. And then that was, you know, kind of the start of Live Fit.
So it's one of those things where like the world presents to you a bunch of things. It's up to you to really take action.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so what I meant by that was everything that I had ever wanted to do, like a goal, a big audacious goal, always came to me earlier in my career than I anticipated.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah.
What I like about Live Fit is like you were like first to market in a way, right? Like
We
you were
were,
like
yeah.
one of the first people to do that.
Yep.
So like what were the biggest barriers that you found creating something like this when you were the first to market?
Well, there's a whole lot of answers that you don't know the answer or questions you don't know the answers to, right? So, trial and error.
Yeah.
Trial and error. I strongly believe if you want something to happen so bad, you will figure it out, like on 100% almost of the time. There's always a way to overcoming that challenge.
Yeah.
If you have the motivation.
Were there things you had to change within yourself to scale the business? So
100%.
Is there any things you can like?
Well, I've always had this ability to kind of have like a when people might I think a lot of people, like for example, your friend might be lazy, but if you go to him and say, hey, you're lazy, he might be like, no, I'm not. I've kind of been able to have that hard look at myself and like know like what flaws I might have and try to like better them and force to do them. And I think like for me, I've had a lot of adversity, I think, in my life at certain points growing up, not really in my teenage years mostly, that makes me want to prove to myself that I am capable of doing big audacious things.
Yeah.
And so that is like also, it's not just about the money for me. In high school, like I had like a lot of teachers that were like, I got in an accident, right, where I couldn't really read or remember things properly. I broke 6 or 7 places in my cheek.
Like a car accident?
Kind of, yeah. And I then my teachers actually failed me. And then I was like, well, I'm showing up still, but I physically can't read or, things like that. So it was kind of like, I was kind of like, fuck you to the school system a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to, that's where it started. And then I just kind of also get high off of these achievements.
Yeah.
With the chip on the shoulder.
Kind of, a little bit.
That's funny because I remember in high school, what do they call it? The teachers who help you pick classes. The guidance counselor. Guidance counselor was like, oh, like, why are you picking academic classes? You're not going to go to university. And that's when I was like, fuck, I got to pick academic classes, just to prove to you, like, I can go.
Right.
So it's one of those things where it's like, as a little kid, it's funny how that can, like, really fuel a fire.
Yeah.
100%. And it kind of started there. But then, and it kind of forced me to get into it. But, I would say, like, if money can't be the only motivator for you to do things, right? You have to be like deeply fulfilled off of like achieving certain things to keep going. Yeah. Because sometimes you got to do things when the money's not even coming, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what's the difference between Lifitfoods and Foods?
Yeah, so we started off as LiveFit,
but
then what we wanted to do was we wanted to branch, basically create a parent company that was sustainable. So we've got a worm farm partnership on our basement where we feed all of our food scraps that turns into worm poop, which is worm castings. That goes back out to a variety of different sources. So we really are 0% food waste, but we wanted to get into other segments of the food business. So creating the parent company allowed us to get into pet food. It allowed us to get into a whole bunch of other things too. So that's why we created Ethy Group.
Cool. And then what made you take like waste so serious? Like, is that something that you're passionate about?
Yeah, it is. I think like if you're running a business that is at scale, you almost have the responsibility in this day and age to run sustainably. I mean on all angles really, but how can you contribute to something bigger than just making money? Right. And I think that also customers like it. I think that I definitely like it. Our partners like it. Our staff likes it. So it just made all the sense in the world to do it. The planet likes it.
Was it a byproduct of like going like greener when you doing your business, or was it like you just kind of had to because of a passion?
Both. Yeah, I think it logically made sense. And also emotionally, it made us all feel good. Yeah.
That's amazing. Like it was bigger than you as the entrepreneur. Right? Like you're saving the world too.
Yeah, trying to.
And then, well, like
someone's got to,
Someone's got to. Yeah.
We can't just leave to Mars. You know what I'm saying?
For real.
It was a cool 10 million hanging around for a ticket to Mars.
Yeah. Is that what they're charging? They're going to be.
I don't know.
Probably the minimum.
Probably more.
Do you think you'd go to Mars if that was
I
the
wouldn't.
option?
I think we should stay behind and clean the planet up.
Would you go to space though? Like do anything like Jeff Bezos? Like when they just hover over
100%.
the earth? You would do that, eh?
Yeah.
That's
Oh yeah, 100%. You know what though? I think like as crazy as I am, I mean I love even like diving and swimming with sharks with like no chainmail or anything on or no cage.
Really?
And, yeah, I mean I understand the nature of sharks to a level where I'm very confident that there's no harm going to be done to me.
Mm-hmm.
But you know I have to be very cautious with that kind of stuff because I also have a lot of responsibility on my shoulders and people depending on me, right?
Yeah,
so a
for
lot
sure.
of investors and whatnot. So I don't do that stuff that much. Or you know, so going to Mars or sorry, not Mars, but space, you know, is that if it was safe, you know, and I was guaranteed to come back, I'd do it.
Yeah. So breaking down, like, you know what I mean, like being very minimal with your waste with your company, is that what led to like Nüvida Labs? Denovia Labs.
Yeah, no worries. So that was actually we were working with a group of scientists to develop a sugarcane based pulp tray that could do everything that plastic could do without being plastic, because we were trying to get rid of plastic in our business. And we achieved that. We invented that. And then the lead scientist, Ishtok, approached me and he said, Nick, I've got this liquid that can, I think, dissolve plastic waste and actually upcycle it into higher quality uses. And I thought, sounds crazy, I'm in. Didn't know how much. And he's like, hey, well, if you invest in it, you can keep the IP and commercialization rights, and the Canadian government through a subsidiary, the funding will come and fund you too.
Yeah.
And then so I wrote the check, signed the agreement, and then he comes back to me and he says, Nick, we figured it out. And I was like, wow, okay, tell me more. And so he comes in and he shows me a plastic bottle, and he dissolved it.
That's
and
crazy.
it turned it into a the liquid that it was in was clear. It turned into it looked like milk.
Really?
And then you filter that, and you have a pure chemical called TPA monomer, which is a core building block to plastic, and you can create new plastics out of that. So essentially you're reversing the way that plastic is actually made.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you can remake it into new.
Like originally,
virgin
how is
state
plastic made? Like, is it a big process? Like,
well, typically it's made out of like pulling materials out of the earth, right?
Yeah.
But then you, the TPA monomer is like a core building block. It's almost like the glue.
Yeah.
And that you can make different types of plastic out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we basically reverse the way that it was born and then rebirth it.
It's crazy because like your product does that in 5 minutes when the closest comparable does it in 16 hours. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's other things out there now. I mean,
Okay.
the industry is developing, but
Yeah.
I mean, 5 minutes is very fast, but it's also extremely sustainable for us economically, and also sustainable. But it's we use very low heat and energy, and it is extremely we can do it at temperatures lower than like a hot tub temperature.
Wow.
Right, which other companies kind of have to. Might have to like grow and or make enzymes, right?
Yeah.
And then it's an enzymatic process. Ours is a chemical based process, but it's a chemical process that is super sustainable. So, it's very fascinating.
Yeah. And you guys have that partnership with Goodwill still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
we do.
And how was that? Like, do you just approach them with your idea? Like, how are you able to make these big partnerships, right?
I had the relationships.
Yeah.
And someone introduced us and to the CEO of Goodwill, and then I went to and had a meeting with her, and I'm just naturally excited about what we're doing, and I told her about it, and she looked at me and she said, Nick, we've been looking for something just like this for a very long time. This is amazing. Let's work together. And I thought, okay.
Yeah.
I would absolutely love to, and I really look up to Michelle, and her team's fantastic. They've got a fantastic business that really cares, and we've got a solution to help make them even better, and the planet better too.
Yeah.
So
Have you found pushback with starting this?
you always will. There's always going to be a number of different challenges always. So pushback in many different forms, not typically from people or the demand. There's definitely a need for like the planet wants and countries want, right? But how do you actually bring this to life?
Yeah.
Right? You were the kind of inventor of this, so it's never been really done. So how do you have to like talk to like engineers to actually develop like the automation side of it, and then like how you actually bring it to life, right? So you had to bring a lot of smart people around to figure that out.
Yeah, like it's one thing to like dissolve it in like, a small scenario, but for a big company, it's like you got to use more stuff, right? Like you guys have a facility in London?
Yeah, we've got one in London.
Cool.
We're opening up one in Vancouver.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
We've got a contract on the West Coast with a very large company called Timac, fantastic partner of ours, where they actually take 100% of the plastic waste off of every single ship that comes into a BC harbor. And so that's north. That's thousands and thousands of tons of plastic, right? So, and then we'll be working directly with like Maersk, Norwegian cruise lines and whatnot to dissolve all that plastic.
Yeah.
That's so smart.
Yeah,
because they need to get rid of it somehow, right? Instead of dumping in the ocean. And
right.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
read like
it's
recently
too
in
cool.
the news that like Canada reverted their ban on single-use plastics last week on Tuesday,
They sure did.
Thursday. Right?
I was actually on a call with a group that is extremely, if not the group that handles that kind of stuff today. Like literally 2 hours ago, and discussing how we can work with them.
Yeah, wow.
Do you
That's
think
crazy.
you may have had an impact on why that swapped in any way?
It's hard to say, but I would imagine that, there's a lot of eyeballs on us. I mean, I've been talking with Jagmeet Singh's brother and, to figure out how we can work with them.
Yeah.
And the NDP and whatnot, because I think, if you're trying to go global with something, you have to bring, some of the biggest people in the world on board to be able to actually make a dent and make change. So, I think we have made an influence on them. We were influential on that.
That's really
That's
cool,
awesome,
man. It's so funny how 2 hours ago you were on the phone with the heavies. I love that. That's really cool.
When this idea was presented to you, did you have any doubt in it in any way?
There's always some level of doubt, but I knew I had the tools to make it real. Yeah, so I think I wouldn't say doubt. I would say I could identify challenges initially, and I knew how to overcome them, immediately. So I knew I had the tools and relationships to be able to make it really big.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's different, but look, I'm not the guy. I know a lot of people and the right people. I'm very passionate. I'm the visionary of the group. But I know that, when it comes to, it's kind of organizing like a hockey team. I have to kind of bring a team together, right?
Yeah.
And I want to, if I'm going to have a high likelihood of winning, I want to buy or get the best players possible, right?
Yeah. Talking about a team, I know we had a question earlier. It's when do you know you're ready to have an assistant? You know what I mean? As an entrepreneur, you're taking on so many things. When is it time to be okay, I need help? With that.
It's probably different for everybody. But look, I think I typically am very good at my tools are very and talents are useful. But I kind of good analogy for this is I'm kind of on the front of the ship, and I've got a spear, and I'm looking at whales going by, and I'm harpooning whales.
Yeah.
And then my assistant and I kind of help pull that whale in, and then she'll take that and figure out how to dice up the meat. Sorry for maybe the vegans watching this, but I was vegan for 3 months once, for the record. Then they figure out how to dice up the meat. Yeah. So, in terms of partnerships or, different opportunities, maybe acquiring a company or what it might be, I usually start off those relationships and then the team figures out how to piece it all together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my admin, Sam, you're the best. So, thank you for organizing my life. But, she does a fantastic job of, organizing, kicking off, organizing, what meetings I should be taking and prioritizing them over others and, maybe getting information quicker together to make a deal come to fruition or something like that. So, it's different for everybody, but when you feel you're at a point where you'd be more efficient with, sticking to one segment of things, and then you have a team behind you to start, kind of piecing everything together for you is good.
Yeah. Cool. I guess one question that we have here is your inner child happy with who you are today?
Yeah,
and
for
why?
Sure. You know what? I think my inner, this could go very deep, but we won't for the sake of just saving some time. But I think like happiness isn't like a final destination, maybe viewed as like the finish line. It is something that you constantly have to like achieve, but also without negativity you actually physically can't have positivity. So when you might be having a really big challenge, it's actually makes you appreciate the good times a lot more.
Yeah.
Right. I've actually learned to even really enjoy the challenging times.
Yeah.
Before I might have gotten extremely stressed or something like that, like the normal human would. It's a normal reaction, right? I've kind of always been that person who's always kind of in war mode, ready to,
Front of the ship.
Always ready to take on the next whale.
Yeah. I love that. And like, what are your challenges that you see in front of you, like in the next few months here? Like, what are some other things you're trying to break through?
There's always, there's always things that come up. I've even had deals fall through where signed contracts were like, everything was signed. Some of the money was even sent over to us, and then all of a sudden that company went belly up. Right, so I might have been anticipating like the full deal to happen, but only half happened. So it's kind of like managing the deal processes and making sure things actually come to fruition. That's very important. I think those are probably some of the bigger challenges that I have now.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier just there's steps in like your life where it's like this business is this business. Is there another step in front after these three?
So we're doing a fairly large acquisition right now for Ethy Group, and we're looking on closing that pretty shortly, which is very exciting. It's going to bring our revenue into something that is a whole other level, which is very exciting, and across North America too.
Yeah.
I'll be focusing a lot of my time on Denovia. I will still be co-CEO with Ethy Group because I brought in another CEO to help manage the day-to-day while I can focus on, kind of bringing in more growth for the company and whatnot. But Denovia on a, value level is when I spend my bandwidth or 80% of my bandwidth on Denovia, it is bringing back more value for the total group. Just because, there's a higher multiplier on the value of that company because it can literally almost change the world.
Yeah.
So people, you can kind of look at like Tesla, right?
Yeah.
The valuations on Tesla or whatever, it kind of goes way up because it makes a very positive impact on the planet and people see that, right? So they, so and with these relationships with, we've done a fantastic job with Ethy Group. But the opportunity, there's $20 million contracts that we're making come to fruition with Ethy Group, but with the contracts on the Denovia side, they're well over, they could be in the hundreds of millions type of thing. So it's like, you can where do you focus your time on, right? It's wherever you're going to make the biggest impact.
Because Denovia is one of those things where, like you said, it could literally solve the world's like plastic problem. Right? So it's like the evaluation. It's hard to like evaluate it.
Can't put a number on that.
Yeah, like when you go public, like the public will evaluate it. But publicly traded comparables right now have unbelievable valuations, and they're not profitable typically, hemorrhaging money, and they're still worth $700-800 million. So like with us, we're gonna have a ton of revenue. We're gonna have major partnerships that are Goodwill is a multi-billion-dollar organization. Waste Connections is a multi-billion-dollar organization. Timac on the West Coast, Maersk, multi-billion. Norwegian Cruise Lines, when you're talking about these, like we have literally an unlimited amount of plastic already dissolved. If we could dissolve all the plastic today, it would translate. It would put a massive. We would be. I can't say this, and also I can't make comments that we will be. You could imagine that we would probably be valued way higher than any other publicly traded comparable in the industry. So that's what we're working towards.
And are you guys public? Like you could buy a stock? Because I'm trying to buy some stock.
We're private right now, like SpaceX. But we will be going public more than likely at some point.
Cool.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, it's remarkable. I'm in a place where I'm very excited on what we're working on. everyone on the team is. I think everyone listening, to our story is very they love hearing it. So yeah, it's starting off with Canada and then the US and then Europe, and we're gonna keep on going, right?
And it's crazy because I feel like a lot of people don't know that like a product like this exists.
Not at all.
You know what I mean? Like our friends or like family, like so people are so like busy with their own lives that they don't have these things to like think about. But when I heard like you're dissolving plastic in 5 minutes, like holy shit.
It's a noisy world out there, right?
It's crazy too because like it's London. It's coming from London. Everyone always thinks London is a small city, or they compare us to London, England, but you're making a change for London, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you can change the world if you want, wherever you are.
Putting London on the map.
Literally.
Nick Spina.
Trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah, Drake says like the 6. Or
you're
the 5.
You're gonna say
the 5.
I love that, bro.
Yeah. No, cool. And I guess, is there any other things that you would like to promote on your end, or things you would like to let our audience know?
Yeah. Just follow me on Instagram. Follow our journey. I think it's motivating to have these people behind us cheering for us, and potentially being a part of it in some way, shape, or form in the near future, by either reducing waste themselves, or maybe even being a partner of the company at some point. You never know where these relationships can go, right?
Yeah. And I guess like one more question is like London's introducing the green bin on January 15th. Like, what are your thoughts in that in regards to like the green bin and how effective that is?
Yeah. Look, I can't say, from what I've learned about the industry, I can't point my fingers or say too much because I don't want to make people look bad necessarily. Mm-hmm. But the industry needs to be better. The percentage of a recycling bin period is extremely low amounts of the contents in a recycling bin actually gets recycled.
Yeah.
So people think that it is. It's actually not. Mm-hmm. Look, I think it's a good move. It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
We'll
see how it turns out.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Well, we'll leave it like there. Honestly, thank you so much, Nick, for coming on to our show here today. Yeah. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll make sure to have all your information up there as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, boys.
No, of course. We'll do it again.
Yeah.
Peace.